Unfortunately, some of the best guns in Destiny 2 you simply just can't even get anymore, or they're very rare to get, something like the Callus Mini Tool, or everyone's favorite, the Hollow Denial, or even some of you solo players out there just struggle to do some of the harder endgame content like raids and those dungeons to get the best weapons. So in today's video, I want to cover some of the best alternatives to these great weapons in the game that you either can't get anymore or you simply struggle to get by yourself. These alternatives are just as good as their original counterpart, and the best part of all of this is that you can go and get these right now as soon as you finish this video, because I'm going to be telling you exactly where to get them from today and what the best perks on them are going to be. So without further ado, sit back, relax, and let's get straight into the first gun. So the first gun that I want to cover is the Callus Mini Tool. This gun is just simply not obtainable anymore. Plenty of people have posted saying it simply just can't drop as it's not in the loot pool anymore, and on top of this, it just simply won't spawn in Xur or the gunsmith's weapon pool because it's just not in there. So this weapon is simply just not obtainable anymore. However, it is still one of the most sought after weapons in the entire game, and it's for good reason. It's a great 900 RPM submachine gun that can roll with incandescent. You can even pair this with something like Unrelenting, so that every time you get a kill, you get health back, and it also makes the enemies scorched and explode. It's one of the best weapons to use with your solo 3.0 subclass, and I was lucky enough to craft one myself, but I know a lot of Guardians out there do not have this gun, and they just want it so bad. So my alternative to this weapon you can get right now is the Bug Out Bag. As long as you have purchased Season 21 Season of the Deep, you can go down to the helm right now and buy as many of these as you want, as long as you have some deep engrams. Besides the visual look of the gun, it is basically an exact replica of the Callus Mini Tool. It is a 900 round per minute gun. It basically has the same recoil direction. The only con is depending on what barrel and magazine you get, it's going to change the stability and the handling on it. But overall, that's not the biggest thing. The most important thing that you get on the Bug Out Bag is incandescent, which is what everyone uses the Callus Mini Tool for. Now, because this is a random rolled weapon and you can't choose what perks you want on it like you can do when you craft a Callus Mini Tool, all you really want to look out for is incandescent. If you get that on it, keep it, lock it, masterwork it, and put it in your vault or use it. However, there is some other great perks that this one can roll with that you want to look out for. So incandescent rolls in the second perk line, so you want to make sure you get that. That is the most important perk. However, in the first perk column, there is a fair few that you can choose from depending on your playstyle. My favorite would be Subsistence, but you can go for something like Slideways or even Threat Detector. Now, because this gun is for PvE activities, the other perks like the magazine and the barrel don't really matter too much. Because this is also a randomized perk pool, getting 5 out of 5 perks on this gun is going to be super rare, so just make sure you look out for incandescent and Subsistence if you're lucky. The next gun on the list that I want to cover is one of the best ad clear guns in the game, the Forbearance, which only drops from the Vow of the Disciple raid, and you need 5 of these in a red border to be able to craft it. The Vow of the Disciple raid is one of the harder in the games, especially for solo players looking for 5 other random players to try and complete this with to get this gun in the perfect roll. Now, the Forbearance is a great gun. It can roll with Ambitious Assassin and Chain Reaction. So Ambitious Assassin will overflow the magazine whenever you get a kill, and Chain Reaction will cause the enemies to explode once they are killed. And it also being a wave frame, it's super easy to kill enemies with this gun. So if you have one, keep it, but if you don't worry, I have the great alternative, which is basically the exact same gun. The only difference is it's not a wave frame. And that weapon is the Salvager's Salvo. This weapon has been in the game for many years, and it's always been purchasable from the exotic vendor in the legacy tab in the tower. I'll be very surprised if some of you Guardians have never heard of this gun. It is just as good as the Forbearance. It is basically the exact replica, except it doesn't have wave frame. It can roll with Ambitious Assassin and Chain Reaction, and it is also Arc Archetype. The great thing about this one is it has a preset roll, so all you have to do is go to the tower and purchase it from the vendor, and you have the perfect roll. Now, I already have this one, so this is why I can't buy it, but you will be able to buy it right here if you haven't already got it. Moving on to the next weapon, we have the Funnelweb. Now, I know this weapon is still obtainable, but a lot of players just don't have it, and they need something to synergize with their Void builds really well. Now, I believe the Funnelweb is still an active world drop, and it can still sell from the gunsmith, so if you're waiting for that, cross your fingers and I hope it comes soon. But in the meantime, you can go ahead and grab the Hero's Burden from the Iron Banner. Everyone was using the Funnelweb because it synergizes really well with volatile rounds. Put on a Void subclass, get volatile rounds, and your Void weapons do some insane damage. They were also using it because it is just like the Callus Mini Tool. It is a 900 RPM, meaning it feels really good and it can get out those volatile rounds really quick. And technically the Hero's Burden is actually, in my opinion, better than the Funnelweb. Why? Because it can roll with the perk Destabilizing Rounds, which states final blows with this weapon cause nearby enemies to become volatile. So if you proc volatile rounds on your Void subclass, killing enemies will spread more volatile around to enemies that you haven't already shot. It is super powerful and it is very underrated. The Iron Banner is active this week and you have a couple days left to get as many Iron Engrams as you can and buy as many Hero's Burdens as you can before it goes away. Just like the last weapon, because this weapon has fully randomized perks, just make sure you look out for Destabilizing Rounds as your #1 perk, and then you can go for some other perks after that. If you have Engrams to blow, I would definitely recommend trying to pair Feeding Frenzy with Destabilizing Rounds. However, if you don't have many or you don't have much time, just look out for Destabilizing Rounds. That is the #1 perk we want here. Now I know Iron Banner isn't the greatest activity that Destiny 2 brings us, but it is still a great way to get some great weapons. So just put on some music, put a podcast on, and just go and play some Iron Banner for a few hours. You should have a few engrams and cross your fingers. Now the next weapon that I want to cover is a rocket launcher, the Apex Predator, which is currently one of the best rocket launchers in the game for high-end, high-damage DPS. This is one hell of a rocket launcher because it can roll with reconstruction and bait and switch, meaning it can overflow the magazine while you're not using it, and it can have a 35% damage increase, making it one of the best rockets in the game for boss DPS. However, it is also tied behind the hardest raid in Destiny 2, Last Wish. So unless you're an incredibly great solo player, the chances of you finding 5 other solo players and actually completing Last Wish are gonna be pretty low. So you getting a crafted Apex Predator is gonna be pretty low. So the alternative rocket launcher that you can go and get right now from Zavala is the Hothead. All you need is some Vanguard Engrams, some Glimmer, and some Legendary Shards, and you can go and get a great rocket launcher. Now, unfortunately, the Hothead has a pretty big perk pool. However, luckily it only takes 2 Vanguard Engrams to purchase 1 Hothead, so you can grab a bunch pretty easily. Now, depending on how you like to do your DPS rotations depends on what perks you're going to want. For me personally, because I'm a Warlock, I like to use something like Explosive Light and Auto-Loading Holster. Using this combo allows me to shoot a rocket out and then switch to my special weapon to do even more damage and wait for my rocket launcher to reload. However, if you don't like this playstyle, another great combination is Field Prep and Clown Cartridge, which grants you increased reload speed and the chance to overflow the magazine, giving you 2 rockets to shoot out. So if you don't have an Apex Predator right now, go and grab a Hothead today. It's just as good and it will do the bare minimum. Now the next weapon on this list is the Rufus's Fury, a great auto rifle. Now this one drops from the Root of Nightmares raid, another raid weapon which is difficult for solo players to obtain. It's been the most used auto rifle for the past 2 seasons, and that's honestly fair enough because it is one of the best legendary auto rifles. Now, like I said, it comes from the raid Root of Nightmares, which can be difficult for solo players. So the alternative to this weapon is the Quicksilver Storm exotic auto rifle. Now, in order to obtain the Quicksilver Storm, all you have to do is buy the Lightfall DLC expansion, which if you're watching this video, I assume you already have done. This weapon is really good. It's one of my favorite auto rifles in the game, and ever since it got its buff, turning it into a strand weapon, I have always been using it. It is one hell of a weapon, and I definitely recommend you using it. Because we also have the seasonal artifact with anti-barrier auto rifles, it makes it a great pick this season. So if you've been neglecting using the Quicksilver Storm, I definitely recommend you reconsider and give it a try. It is one hell of an exotic rifle. Now, the final weapon on this list that I want to cover is a linear fusion rifle Cataclysmic. This is another legendary weapon that drops from the Vow of the Disciple raid. Raids are definitely the hardest content for solo players to complete because it requires 6 players. Now, although linear fusion rifles have been nerfed into the ground, they are still very viable in certain situations, and in my personal opinion, the Cataclysmic is the best linear fusion rifle that you can use if you want to use one. But I'm assuming you probably don't have one because you haven't done the Vow of the Disciple and you haven't been lucky enough to craft one. So my budget version of the Cataclysmic is the Taipan 4FR. All you need to do to get this weapon is complete the Witch Queen campaign, and it's going to give you the pattern to be able to craft it. So if you've been neglecting the Witch Queen campaign for some reason, go ahead and finish it and you can craft one of these right now. As a solo player, this has some of the best perks that you can use by yourself, such as Triple Tap and Focus Fury. This considers for some serious high damage, and I definitely recommend giving it a try if you don't have a Cataclysmic. But anyway, Guardians, that is all I have for you today. Those are 6 great alternatives to some of the best weapons in the game that you either A, can't get anymore, or they're too hard to get as a solo player. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Feel free to drop a like and a subscribe for more content just like this. But anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see you later.